we're super excited you're able to join us today to talk about a pretty unique and interesting topic. I'm super excited to get Bryan's take on this. It's something that I've lived for quite a long while, and that is basically practice in the sales profession. And what does that look like today? And how are organizations doing it? What does it mean? All of those things are interesting. And I just, as we started to put this together, and Bryan and I talked about it, I think it's a really interesting correlation between practice in other areas and other fields and other things, and bringing that back into the sales field, because it is something that we oftentimes don't really think about. So as we get started real quick, Bryan, why don't you do a quick introduction of yourself? I'll do the same, and then we'll get going.
So hey, everybody, Bryan Neale, AKA the Blind Zebra. That's why you see these BZs, because Geoff was kind enough to drive over from Cincy and do this in our studio here. I've been a salesperson since I was 20 years old. I got my first job at Procter & Gamble, living in Columbus, Ohio, out in field sales. Got great training and coaching there. Spent about 5 years doing that, and then got into the entrepreneurial side of the economy. I started my first business when I was 26, and then was bankrupt at 27 and a half. Like a lot of entrepreneurs will tell you, you give it a go, you fund it yourself, and it doesn't work, then you got to pay the bank back. But then I did it again. So here we are. Well, it's gone better this time, so not quite bankrupt. I think I'm doing okay. Yeah, but it's been a great ride. I'm a salesperson at heart. Our firm, Blind Zebra, does sales training and sales coaching across the country and across the globe, really, these days, with the advent of Zoom and people being comfortable having interactions that way. And more than anything, we have a phrase around here: we sell first, teach second. So we are in the sales process all the time. I have my own sales calls all the time, as much to screw things up so I can teach people what not to do than to get successful. But we love being in the game. And to that end, we also, and I'm a reformed anti-practice guy. So I was someone who hated role playing, hated practicing. And I actually, as a sales coach for about 20 of my 25 years doing this, I hated making people. And so I was actually known for someone, they loved me. My clients loved me because I didn't make them practice.
Right.
And then I'm like, wait a second, this is wrong. This is wrong. So I have learned from that practice is everything. And then the Blind Zebra comes from my side job. If you haven't heard, I'm also an NFL referee. Got blessed yesterday to get a lifelong dream come true. I'm actually going to referee in the Super Bowl this year. And a lot of what I talk about in practicing has come from my experience of moving up through the ranks of football officiating into the National Football League, and now all the way to the Super Bowl. So that's me.
Awesome stuff, man. That's really great. And again, congratulations. I know everyone to send that your way as well.
Thank you.
And I'm Geoff Curless. I have overseen sales and customer success for Rehearsal for the last 6 years. And Rehearsal was recently acquired by eLearning Brothers. So now a part of the eLearning Brothers brand. Super excited to be a part of that company. But at the end of the day, Rehearsal is a modern take on a practice platform, and it's specifically directed towards corporate learning and development, including sales. And so many of you on the call today have participated in some level of Rehearsal interaction or experience. For those that haven't, just know that that's the angle that I'm coming to you with. A, I'm in sales and have been for over 20 years. B, I am a supporter of the idea of repetition in anything that you do, and sales and corporate business is no different than that. But the big question there is, how does that happen? So today we're just going to talk about a lot of different things as it relates to practice to play ratio. And Bryan's got a lot of experience in that regard as well. And then we'll kind of answer questions as we go. But let's get started, Bryan, and just kind of talk a little bit about, I know you mentioned earlier that you weren't such a big fan of role play at the time. Talk to me about your experience with practice and where that's brought you today.
Yes. And Geoff and I were talking, you know how you meet people, you compare the age. I'm like, we're pretty close. And we were pretty close. I'm older though, but
wiser.
So
wiser.
Be obvious,
we'll just call you
right?
wiser.
But so when we got into selling, which both of us got our first jobs were sales jobs right out of college, and it's IU and Clemson. So a couple decent business schools. There were no computers. There were no cell phones or anything like that. Everything was done very old school. Maybe we got a laptop like my third year, but it weighed 9 pounds. You know how that goes.
My first cell phone was actually the one that was attached to the car.
Yeah,
it had a cord to it, right? So
I
did have one, but I think the monthly bill was $1,000 a month, so it's not good. Not good.
That's when the moniker of being wealthy was having the cell phone antenna off the middle back of your back windshield or window there. So and we at P&G had to practice, and the way that we practiced was live with the manager, and often included a live video camera with a VHS tape. So if you're a millennial, Gen Z, you need to Google VHS tape. I'm kidding, but the Gen Xers know this. We'd watch it back on the tape, and it was terrifying. And I always felt like everyone in the room was uncomfortable. Everybody, like no one liked to watch the practice. And for me, I got to a point like, this is crazy. Like making people uncomfortable doesn't work anymore, just doesn't. So I really stopped practicing, and I kind of put it to the people to practice on their own. Then had an epiphany as I started to move up the ranks in football referee, and I started to observe both big time college football. So I reffed in the Big Ten for 8 years, and then in the National Football League. And I got to attend lots of practices. And what I realized was this hit in the head thing. Like, I'm doing the sales thing wrong. I have got to learn to embrace practice versus deflect practice. And that really hit a switch for me personally, and also for my clients, where I said, okay, I've got to change this whole way I think about the whole thing. And what I notice in football, and it's what you'd think, the best players, or it's not what you think, but this is what the reality is, the best players, and in the NFL, they're the best on the planet at what they do. They're the best players on the planet. They love practice. Now, they don't love it like it's fun. Like, this is so great, I can't wait to get out there. They love it because it gives them an edge to make them better, which allows them to be the best at what they do. And so when a practice period ends in an NFL practice, or it comes to a conclusion, so they usually do them in like little segments, like 6 minutes. Let's say there are 30 seconds left, and the coach is with the lineman and says, hey, do any of you linemen want another rep? The veterans are the one that push the rookies out of the way and say, I want another rep. That's what veterans do. That's what high-performing people do. So my whole thought process around practice has changed completely, where now my goal with my clients is to help them create a really, really wonderful practice culture where the sales reps look forward to practice. They say, hey, coach, hey, manager, can we scrimmage? Can we talk? I want to roll some language by you. I want you to resist this. And then I want to hear, because if we let go of the ego of the looking bad and that sort of thing, practice is awesome, because you have this space to screw up. And that's one of the other things I think practice cultures that people miss, is there's no space to screw up. When I had to be on the video camera at P&G, you probably went through some of this. Your goal was to do it perfectly so that you didn't have to do it again.
Right.
And you look good in front of your peers. Bad intention across the board. A better intention to me is like, this is where I want you to screw up.
Right.
I want you to call timeout in the middle of the practice session and go, hang on, rewind. I want to do that over again and rehearse it, because it's not live.
Well, and I think if we think about it, that's probably why many on the call, and myself and you included, hated the idea of practice at that time. Is the practice environment wasn't optimal, and it wasn't even good. It was stand up, feel uncomfortable, everyone else feels uncomfortable, and you get through it and you sit down, you're like, I got through it, but I had no idea what I said, what I did, or any of that stuff. And
Yes.
so I think that technology has brought us further along now in terms of what we can do and how we can practice. But, I'm sure many, if you're in the sales role, or if you've practiced communication skills at all, it's standing in front of a mirror is a good way to do that. Right. But it's one way. There's no way to go back and review it. And I think if we've learned anything from practice in other areas, all of the time and effort that goes into practice in other roles.
Yes.
And NFL is a perfect example of that.
Yes.
They have built a practice process that works. And
Yes.
we as organizations, as learning people, we've never really spent time doing that.
No.
So organizations are now starting to take hold of that, introducing sales enablement folks, introducing the idea of a practice environment, and that's starting to change that.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. And I'm sure you've heard this, or you did this. We did this. By the way, Mark, that's really funny. Hit the head, probably not the right foot. Thank you. It's a very, very, very aware comment there. By the way, if you have questions as we go, you can pop them in the chat room. No problem. We'll maybe stop along the way. If you have a question you want to ask Geoff or me, it'd be great. When we think about the way and the types of practicing that we did, I feel like a lot of the resistance we got was, well, this isn't real. This isn't how it really works. And I asked myself sometimes, so how does it really work then? So I did this little game that I wasn't trying to be a jerk about it, but I thought, okay, so I would surprise my clients. So I've got a room full of salespeople. Let's say my client sells to hotels, and they sell to hotel general managers, and I want to do a practice session. They go, well, Bryan, this isn't real. So what I do, and I wasn't trying to be a jerk, I call one of my friends who's a hotel general manager. I said, hey, can you come surprise my friends at a meeting here this afternoon? And go, sure. And so this guy's a general manager of a real hotel that they would want to have as a customer. I bring him into the room. I go, this is Scott. He's the general manager of the JW downtown. Go ahead. Here he is. He's sitting right here. Now it's real. And everyone just like, oh.
Deer in headlights.
Oh,
right?
completely freeze
Yeah.
up. I'm like, okay, now before you told me, well, it's not real. Well, now it's real because he's literally sitting in front of you. So now it's real.
Right.
And I think that's the thing that people need to let go of, that practice isn't real or rehearsal isn't real, because it is.
Right.
It is real. Because if you do that, you say, well, the only time it's real is when it's live, then you're practicing during the game, and that doesn't work.
Right.
So
yeah, and setting up some level of a chance to learn and fail, right? And that's a key part of that. We've all had sales conversations in the past where we're trying things for the first time and we hope they stick. We don't know if they stick. We can't even assess what they came across as, which means we can't even do a post-game assessment of how was my skill in that particular environment. And it's one of those things that, again, I think salespeople in general are going to push back. So many of you on this call today are probably in some sales training function. That's might be why you're here. And if you are, you probably struggle with the fact that I'd love to do some level of additional training or practice for our sales team, but guess what? They don't like it. And so what do? Well, that's where it starts to become more of a company culture, a top-down approach where if the organization is going to see the value of what they get out of practice that ultimately turns into additional revenue, there has to be a culture shift. There has to be this understanding that we can now lean on new technologies, new processes that are going to support the idea of practice. And that's where we're at today.
That's really good. And we always want you to have takeaways from things like this. So I would love for you to take away one thing first from this, is to ask yourself a question. What is my practice culture like? And if you think of a spectrum, you think a 10 is it's really solid, is the sales team looks forward to and proactively asks to practice more. And you have a system for evaluating the practice and practicing right and getting the proper reps and rinse, repeat. That's a 10. 0. Oh my God, we haven't done a role play practice session since I've been here, and I've been here for 10 years. That's a 0. Give yourself an assessment, a little quick assessment on the score, and then ask yourself what's missing. If I gave myself a 6, why didn't I do a 7, 8, 9, or 10? That will start to show you the little gap that you have in creating a practice culture. And you can take that and then move that into a plan to say, okay, an easy thing to do to fix that is to create practice time and practice space, physical space, to say that's our practice room. That's our rehearsal room. If you go into a music school, so I went to Indiana, the Jacob School of Music is one of the most renowned music schools in the world. That's full of practice rooms. If you walk through the hallways, you'll hear people playing the violin and the oboe and whatever else in their practice rooms to practice over and over and over. So when they go to perform, they're ready. Practice rooms. All NFL teams have a practice field, most of them too, an indoor one and an outdoor one. Because if you're playing outdoors, you need to practice outdoors. The other thing most people don't know is when NFL teams practice and they're going to be on the road, they bring enormous speakers out and they play crowd noise, like literally crowd noise. And I've been on lots of practice fields. You cannot hear. It's so loud. They do that on purpose because they're practicing and simulating the real game. So ask yourself, what does that mean for your organization and sales? What are the little things I can do? Can I create practice space? Can I create a practice room? Can I create a practice time? So a slot, say I want everyone should take at least, 30 minutes every other week in the practice room. Go ahead and reserve it. The practice room's yours. That starts to create a practice culture. There's a very specific takeaway you can take from this today.
Yeah, and some of our customers from a rehearsal side, and again, apply the concept of rehearsing to whatever technology, whatever type of environment that you want to work in. But what a lot of our customers that have become more and more successful with introducing and supporting a practice culture has been to really focus weekly or biweekly on key topics that are affecting their business. And it's this idea that there's a cadence built into this. It's not a let's practice when there's a new product and let's practice about that product. And then down the road, there's another new product. So let's practice now. They've built this cadence that everybody knows that every week or every other week, we're going to be working on a different skill, a skill that we're struggling with as an organization, a skill that we want to reinforce. And by building in that cadence, people become familiar with it. It's not a one and done type of opportunity. This is part of our culture because it's happening regularly. And that's a key part of that, because if you miss out on that, then the individuals aren't even sure when's the next time I'm going to work on this practice. I don't know.
Yes. I want to talk about practice to play ratio a bit, if that's okay.
I do too, but I was actually going to be my next question, because I want to throw that over to you to ask you a little bit about what does that look like in corporate versus other places? Yeah.
Sponsored by Bubbly. Drink like 12 of those a day. All right. This is another thing that I've learned. And Geoff will attest. I have a piano sitting like right here, like right there's my piano. I play my piano almost every day. And I've never taken piano lessons ever. And if I played the piano for you right now, you'd be like, you're kidding, you've never taken piano lessons. I'm like, I swear to God, I've never taken a piano lesson. I haven't. What I did though, so if you read the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. If you haven't read that book, you should read the book. It's called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. Malcolm Gladwell is a really cool writer, takes really unique angles on things that most of us see as normal. He talks about things that are predictors of success in general. One of the chapters in the book is called the 10,000 hour rule, the 10,000 hour rule. And he gives you several scenarios of people that you know that are really famous and really popular, and examines what their practice sessions were like and the practice to play ratio that they had as they were crafting or, getting good at their craft. He uses the Beatles. The Beatles actually, when they were in high school, got hired by some pub owner, and they didn't know any better. So they made the guy play, or this guy made the Beatles play like 6-8 hours a day, if not more, all day. So those four guys who, John, Paul, Ringo, right? They were playing all day, all day, all day. People just think, oh, Paul McCartney and John Lennon were just born that way. They weren't. They practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced. Then the magic happens. And so read the book, Outliers, go to the 10,000 hour rule. And that's where the foundation of practice to me hits home. And so when we talk about practice to play ratio, if you look at the NFL, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 practices, 2 walkthroughs. The players report to the facility usually 6 to 7 in the morning. They tend to leave 6 to 7 at night. The coaches will stay usually until midnight. Some sleep there. They do that all week long for 3 hours of performance. And in the 3 hours of performance, the clock is live 160 times 7 seconds. It's like 7 or 8 minutes of live action. So think of that, days and hours and hours and hours. So for basically, 7, 8, 10 minutes of live action, it's insane, the practice to play ratio. And if you see that in anything, you see it in performance art. I'm a huge Prince fan. So I got my Prince book right above my head. If you study Prince's life, that's what that book's about. You'll see how all he did was practice. It's all the guy did was practice and practice and practice and practice. And so something we miss in corporate America is we miss the practice to play ratio.
Right.
I mean, we play and play and play and play and play, and then we practice, and then we play and play.
But we use the play to learn, right? So we
That's
play and
we
we
play,
fail,
yes,
and we're like,
correct.
oh, don't do it
Right.
that way again. Let's change that. Well, guess what? We've just lost out on an opportunity in that regard. And along those same lines as Outlier and the 10,000 hours, one of my favorite sayings comes from Bruce Lee, who said, I don't fear the guy who's practiced 10,000 kicks one time. I fear the guy that's practiced one kick 10,000 times.
Yes.
Right. And it's the same general idea.
Yes.
It's the repetition aspect of it that's super important.
Yes.
And what we do at rehearsal in supporting organizations to get their folks in a comfortable place to get repetitions in. And just to give a quick understanding of why rehearsal came to be in the first place, the idea of sales reps and really anybody working on their communication and conversation skill was important. And so that was key. But what we knew at rehearsal from a behavioral science perspective was that people are pretty tough on themselves.
Yes.
And they're tougher on themselves than anybody else. And so as long as we got them started in their practice setting and let them do their self-assessments and started to look at how they were performing, they were going to keep working on that skill until they got it right, just by human nature. And so utilizing technology to really just get the ball rolling, what we find is human nature makes us want to perfect or improve that skill. So we'll iterate on that very much like what you're talking about, the 10,000.
Yes.
And it may not be 10,000, but the idea of allowing your individuals and your folks to practice is getting them started in the process.
Yes.
And once they start, and if they can stay on a cadence, it's going to be a part of their culture and a part of what they do. And that's an important thing.
Geoff's got a video to show, and I'm actually kind of like play coach here for a minute and watch this video. But what I want to show you is the coaching process also, as much as the content of what I'm talking about. And you'll probably see this as a coach, we tend to be like, when we say we want to critique the film, most people think critique is a negative word. Critique feels like I'm going to pick it apart. Critique to me is agnostic. Critique could be very positive or very negative and everywhere in between. And so you as a coach, and if you're a coach and if you're a sales enablement person, you're trying to create this culture, make sure part of the coaching is balanced, right? So we want to have, and I'm not doing the proverbial crap sandwich that, it's not that. It's more just, there's a good and a bad. We can find good, we can find bad. People will have, they'll be a better coachees if you do it that way. Versus I'm going to show you everything you did wrong. And you want to hold them. You want to hold videos also that are really good. So we're gonna watch a video. I have no idea what this is, by the
Right.
way.
Yeah, you don't.
This
We're gonna
isn't, no,
surprise
I've
you.
never seen
We're
this.
gonna surprise you.
So,
What I'm sharing right now is my screen.
which we like. Yeah.
This is an example of Rehearsal, the application that is basically a video-based practice and coaching platform. This is a scenario. So in effect, what we're doing in this position is we're presenting one of our sales reps with the opportunity to practice based on a situation.
So can I ask before? So that's you. Are you playing the buyer here? Are you the salesperson?
I am playing the buyer. In effect.
You're the buyer.
Yeah,
Okay.
But I'm
You're
actually
playing the buyer.
not even really the buyer as much as I'm setting the stage
You're
for
setting
what
the
just
stage.
happened. So
okay, great.
ultimately, what I'm going to say here, and I'll hit play in a moment,
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is we just had a really powerful and successful demo.
Okay.
Everybody was there. Everybody was present. A lot of great buying signs, some questions that came through it. And now I've asked this particular rep to close the meeting. What do they need to do to move to the next step, right? And so this is something that everybody's going to walk into. They're going to have a successful meeting, and now we're coming to close, and they have to do it the right way.
Okay.
Let's see the scenario play out.
Okay. And I'm going to coach this. So I'm in coaching mode right now, watching
You're
the
going to
video.
watch the scenario.
I've never seen this
then I'm going to play the scenario.
Like more nervous. I'm going to be
really great interactions.
Hold on,
we had a great discovery call with the customer to pull out all the information.
Hold on. Okay, let me refresh this page. All right. Of course, live technical difficulty, but
we're good.
Materially, here we go.
Done.
So far, so good. We've gotten this far and had a few really great interactions. We had a great discovery call with the customer to pull out all the information we needed. Then we had a great demonstration where they were engaged and interacting with us, asking questions, and really giving positive feedback throughout the process. Then they asked for some marketing materials to distribute internally, and they asked even for pricing for their users. So now we're closing the meeting. What do you say, and how do you close the meeting to prepare this opportunity for success in the future?
All right, so we set the
Beautiful.
stage. Now this goes out to all of our reps.
Okay, good.
Okay, and this is one of the weekly cadence requests. So
This is
we're
good.
working on closing.
Yes.
So every rep grabs their camera when they have time and they record their response. And here's a response from Micah. This is what Micah had to say to close the meeting.
Okay, so I'm coaching on this. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you all so much for your time today. That
you
was
can tell we haven't rehearsed this on purpose. This is the thing. If you are coaching, you need to watch the film a couple times. Okay, so if you are the coach, what a lot of coaches will do is they'll listen to it one time and they're like, oh, I got it. I really want, you owe it to your sales team to spend time and energy really digging into hearing what they're saying. And so many coaches don't do that. They're like, as soon as he did, I know we did wrong here, I'll fix that real quick. Don't do that. You've got to go deep and really understand it, because the better you do that, again, it's almost like courtesy to him to take the time. So I want to hear it one more time.
Sure.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Really great conversation. I'm so thankful that we had the chance to do that. I've got a couple of action items that we're going to go ahead and take care of. I'm going to first and foremost send you over that marketing material that we talked about. I think that'll be really good for your internal discussions. Also, I'm going to be pulling together all of that pricing for you to review and share internally so you're all on the same page. And then, let's just say maybe I'll just follow up in a week or two. How does that sound?
Awesome.
There it is again.
Great. Got it. Okay.
He's scribbling frantically on his
whiteboard. That's how I do.
It's
Well, and I've got a couple clients on here. That's how I do it, right? Okay, so this is a little BZ stuff. So we have in our methodology, we have these three this primary framework that has three elements: think, do, say. And so the thinking column is energy, and we have 10 elements in that. So one of the things I look for is the energy here. We have some what's this guy's name? Micah. So Micah's got some really good energy. He's very balanced. I don't feel like his energy is not overly salesy, not overly positive. That's good. So balance is one of the things that we teach. I also listen for intention. So the intention I'm listening for is his energy like a selfish, or is it really about helping them? And I feel very balanced, very neutral. They're good on good intention. So that would be a couple of good things energetically. Have nothing to do with what he said or did. It's the vibe that I get.
Right, sure.
And I always coach there first, the thinking column. So now I'm going to get into the mechanics. Okay. So he said, first, this was a really good meeting. That was great. It's good things. This is a tiny little coaching moment that will help Micah more than it'll help the prospect. He said, I think if we roll it back, I've got a few action items. I think he said, okay, if you say the word few ever, I want you to take a line, circle through it. Don't say the word few. This is a blind zebra thing. I always want you to default to a numbered list. We do that because it's easier to say and easier to understand. So instead of Micah saying, okay, we've got a few things to do. First and foremost, we're going to, and then I'm going to, and then, it's really can start to drag on. Salespeople are bad at stopping. Salespeople are bad at stopping. Numbered lists help you stop. So how I would coach Micah, if he were here in the room, I'd say, can I give him the feedback through I'm not going to do it live, but I could comment back on this, right?
That's exactly right. You literally prompt him to do it again, or you'd finalize that response.
Finalize and
you're
say,
doing it on video. You're providing video feedback.
Yes. So I would say, so first, Micah, good work. Energy wise feels really good to me. Couple tweaks in the language. Tweak number 1. Okay. Try a numbered list. Okay. So instead of saying a few, say, okay, I've got 3 action items on my side. Let me read them off to you and you tell me if I've got them right or not. Okay. 1, we're going to get you marketing material. Yep. 2, we're going to get you pricing. And 3, and there was a third one. Mm-hmm. So is there anything else other than those 3 things? That gets very concrete. There's no debate about what it was if it's 3 things. And someone go, actually, there's a 4th. Okay, 4. What's the 4th? We also want da-da-da-da. Okay, that gives some space there to get that acknowledgement back. So is there anything else? We love asking questions later that are affirming like that versus, okay, I've got a few things. I'm going to do this and this and this. And then I'll call you in a couple weeks. How's that sound? It's very loose, right? We love clarity around here. It's part of being a ref, right? That's it. We have a cheeky phrase, be wrong, strong. Like it's going to be decisive. So bullet to list. So there are 2 things I'm going to get to you. Number 1, marketing material for you to circulate internally. And the second thing on the list is pricing. Is there anything else for me to add to the list that you need at this point? Stop. Nope. That's good. Those 2 things will get us going. Perfect. Okay. Now there are 2 other elements here. One, I don't know enough about the call. There's a thing, this came from one of my clients. I'm going to skip to my third thing on my notebook here, or my whiteboard. It's called the no surprise proposal. No surprise proposal. I don't know yet if Micah has discussed the pricing with the prospect or if he's just going to send it over blind. If he sends it over blind, it has the risk of being a surprise, right? Flip to the price page. Holy shnikes, it's more than I thought. What? Or it's whatever. Okay. We call it economics. We want to talk about the economics. I would coach Micah here to talk about the economics before we leave so that when they get the pricing, it's boring to get. No surprise. Yep. We said, $48 a users times 100 users a month. Yep. $4,000 a month. That's what it says right there. That's what it says. No surprise proposal. Okay. And then lastly, one of my biggest hangups, and if I have any clients on here, you know where I'm going with this. We never ever end with, can I call you in a couple of weeks? I know Micah was pretending in this one. There's no way any of your salespeople, Geoff, would ever do this. Clear future date is the next thing. And the clear future date, the mechanical thing I would coach Micah to do in this point, after he affirms the 2 things, hopefully he's talked about the pricing out loud to say, I'm going to give you those 2 things. The language I would teach him to say very specifically, if he's on Zoom, is to say, I'll call him Micah. Hey, Micah, I'd take my phone. I say, do you have your calendar in front of you? And then everyone's got their phone within 6 inches of them. And you wave your phone. I guarantee you, if you wave your phone at Zoom and say, do you have your phone with you? Whoever you're talking to will grab their phone and wave it back. Just try that. It works. I'm telling you. And it's not sales trickery. And we just set a date before we leave. So I just say to him, I say, hey, before we leave, I'm going to look. So I can get those 2 items to you by Friday, easy, 28th. You're going to need a little time to circulate. When you look at next week, call it the 2nd or 3rd, about a 15-minute window to reconnect and just get some more dialogue going about those 2 things I sent. I'm looking for 15 minutes on the 2nd or 3rd. I stare at my calendar. I promise you they will stare at yours. Promise you. They will do that. I know. Thank you. Mike is like, I would never do that. I know you would, Micah. I know, but
poor Mike is on
you
here.
played really well here though, man.
No,
really
so a couple of caveats here.
Yeah.
One, yes, I did ask Micah to respond in the worst possible way for this coaching session. But going back to one of your points, no surprise proposals.
Yeah.
What we always say is actually present the price. So
absolutely.
So the way we go back and say, I can get the price together in 2 days.
Yes.
Can we set up a 30-minute time to go over that?
Yes.
Don't send it and then check on it later. We want to present it and go through it with them.
Absolutely.
So that, again, it's no surprise.
Yes.
CFD is the thing that we've done from the very beginning that I met you. I thought it was great. We talk about CFDs all the time. Clear future date after every meeting.
Every time.
And if there is no CFD or no clear future date, it doesn't even register. We're not even looking at that as an opportunity.
He literally learned that like in one call, and I couldn't have spoken it better.
Sure.
That tells me Geoff's taken that, made it his own. That's what I want all our clients to do. Yeah. And I know Micah would do that. You measure CFDs. No CFD doesn't mean it, right? You got nothing.
Yeah.
You got nothing. Just do it that way.
You got to have it. And again, what we've seen is this shift in mindset too, which is you walk off a meeting and everyone feels great.
Yes.
And it's really strong and everyone's felt awesome about it. And then you walk away and then you get ghosted. You know,
yes,
not because they don't have interest, but because they're not driven by the same needs that you are.
Yes.
And so if we can make sure that we have that set in stone, we at least know when we're talking to them next.
Absolutely.
You got it.
Really good.
Fantastic.
Good stuff.
So as we wrap it up today, and we're going to go ahead and finish things up right now.
Yeah.
Again, I just want, on behalf of Rehearsal, thank Bryan for being a part of
Same,
this today.
same.
And you know, hopefully you all walked away with a few things to think about. The main thing that I hope you walk away from here is an extra thought around what does practice look like for you and your organization and your teams today, and can it be better, and if so, how does it get better? And there are lots of tools, opportunities to do that. It doesn't have to be anything outside of just you introducing some ideas to that team to get them thinking about that. We need to increase the amount of time that people are spending in that practice. Anything for you to close up with?
That was it. First, thanks for inviting us to do this. This was really awesome. I hope you got some very specific takeaway things, both from what we talked about practice culture wise, even from that little practice coaching session, that you can go implement tomorrow. I hope you do that. And then don't be strangers. Blind-Zebra, what's yours? Rehearsal.com. I mean, we're around. You can find us LinkedIn. We're LinkedIn junkies. So please stay in touch. You're part of the team. We always say, now that you've been here, your team BZ, your team Rehearsal. And we're really thankful you spent the time with us. So thanks a bunch.
Have a great rest of the day. Good luck to everyone.
Don't yell at me. Don't yell at me at the Super Bowl.
Don't scream at the TV if the umpire throws a bad flag on your team. See you all.
Bravo. Thanks for your time.
Bye.
Cheers.